If you need some inspiration or just want good company, whatever you are looking for, you'll find it here indeed, in meaningful mornings. Meaningful mornings. Meaningful mornings.
Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. Recently, in Easy Evenings, a parent had asked a question: how do you explain what the ego is to an 8-year-old? And my response was, imagine I'm speaking to an 8-year-old, whatever your parents have and yours is dormant, that's the ego. And more so, the ego focuses on differences so that it can feel separate. And what do we do in Meaningful Mornings? We come to unity, community, where our focus is not on differences, but the fact that we're all seeking to go from separation to oneness. In verse 1 of Bhagavad Gita, and please flow with me, go verse by verse. Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, what is happening in this conflict? He can't see and doesn't want to see, so he's doing this through Sanjaya. That is scene 1. Scene 2. 10 verses now flow, where Duryodhana is speaking to Drona and the Kaurava side. And each of these verses shows an expression of ego. These are markers for us to detect in ourselves and to grow out of. In verse 2, what we learn about Duryodhana is that he is hypocritical. He approaches Drona in one way, physically, but he's thinking something else. In verse 3, we come to understand his aggressiveness. That he keeps sharing, you did this. This conflict is because of you. In verse 4, he's acting mean. He's showing that Drupada is on their side, and Drupada and Drona are enemies. In verse 5, as he continues to list the Pandavas, he's distracted. He's distracted by them. And that's because he's comparing. Verse 6, he's continuing with this, and he's taking for granted his own strength of the Kauravas. He's being negligent, hypocritical, aggressive, mean, distracted, negligent. 5 expressions, 5 markers. In verse 7, he is showing his insecurity. He's suspicious about Drona. In verse 8, he finally starts to list some of the warriors on his side, but he's being insincere about this. It all relates to Drona, as if to quell his anger, his frustration. In verse 9, he's sharing all of this is happening because of him. People have gathered, people will die because of him. This expression is being selfish. All relates to his self. In verse 10, he's comparing Bhishma, Bhima, and what this shows is he's being reactive because he thinks quantity supersedes quality. Reactive. And I think that's an expression we can all relate to, yes? Living a life of quantity over quality. And finally, verse 11, which we just covered, he's desperate. And so he's putting all of his hope on Bhishma. And though this is a fine strategy, it's still an act of desperation. He's not referencing any other of the warriors or his own efforts. Duryodhana is a symbol of the ego, and I feel we have many of these expressions. Understanding these 10 verses is important because Arjuna also has ego, but it's a different ego. It's as if Duryodhana's is a rajasic ego, one that's filled with aggression, and Arjuna's is a sattvic ego, an ego that is justifying its position. And we'll go deep into these expressions too, because we have them. We have to know them to grow out of them. And the last thought I shared yesterday was about what Swami Chinmayananda has said about Bhagavad Gita. He shared that this is the manual to live life, the best book of guidance for humanity. We are most fortunate that we're getting to experience this. You are most fortunate because you are invoking grace. Swakripa, that is your own efforts, that begins the flow of grace from your guide, from your scripture, from your creator. We continue. We're now on scene 3. And Acharya Bhishma is here now. Tasya sanjayanan harsham kuru vridha pitamahaha simhanadam vinadyochaihi shankam dadmau pratapavan. Tasya sanjayanan harsham. Acharya Bhishma, to bring enthusiasm and energy to Tasya. He's referring to Duryodhana. This is the first quarter. You've heard before, in a moment of tension, you can fight, flight, or freeze. And what's happening is Duryodhana is going into freeze. So what Acharya Bhishma does is he wants him to get into fight mode. This is why all of this has been arranged. Who is Acharya Bhishma? Kuru Vriddhaha. He is the most experienced on the Kaurava side in the whole family. And so he's Pitamahaha, which means grandfather, but more so grandsire, more so the grand overseer. Now, many of you who have some understanding of Bhagavad Gita, you question Acharya Bhishma. A specific question that came up. Why is Bhishma Pitama on Duryodhana's side? The Pandavas and Kauravas are all his nephews, so why is he supporting Duryodhana? You all have this question too. He is loyal to the land. He is not loyal to a person or to a party. He is loyal to the land. And to understand this, imagine a hospital is run poorly. And so they cancel elective surgeries and people walk out, other than the ER doctors are not allowed to, correct? They are loyal to serving the people, irrespective of policy. Agreed? They can't. It's not allowed. Shared differently, suppose you're a police officer and you show up at a home and your child, your grandchild, your relative is there committing a crime. What do? Are you loyal to the person or are you loyal to the land, to security? And one more way to understand why Acharya Bhishma is Acharya Bhishma. If he changed sides from the Kauravas to the Pandavas, there would be more chaos. Already there's chaos, there would be more chaos. And so this is actually a preventative strategy that he's taking up. And look at how much he would have to suffer, how much he would have to sacrifice being loyal to the land. What did he do specifically? Simhanadam Vinadyochaihi. He roared like a lion. And you have to visualize this. He's so tall, so strong. He has long, curly gray hair, like Gandalf the White, like Dumbledore, but way stronger, majestic. He had done this, and he knows Drona. He knows that Drona is angry with Duryodhana. He knows Duryodhana. Duryodhana is afraid right now. So this roaring is to shake everyone up. And then Shanka Dadmau Pratapavan, the mighty Acharya Bhishma, blew his conch. And this begins the war, even though there's 680 verses until the war begins. But this shows the Kauravas are the aggressors. They started this conflict. It's like the first punch laid. And one more point about Acharya Bhishma. Before they all assembled on the battlefield, he told the Pandavas, as long as I'm alive, you're not going to win. What a statement. As long as I'm alive. I may have said you're alive. As long as I'm alive, that is Acharya Bhishma, you're not going to win. Scene 3 will continue. We go from inspiration to application. Your application from yesterday was to sign up to subscribe for the e-vichara. How many of you did this? Good. The e-vichara goes out to more than 5,000 seekers. And why this is important is because then we're all on the same page when I use references. Understood? Your application for this morning, I want you to reflect on how should you decide loyalty? What are the factors in you deciding what to be loyal to, who to be loyal to? Think about that. And announcement-wise, some of you may not know, but both of my parents have also completed a Vedanta course. They're trained teachers. I did so in English in Mumbai. They did so in Hindi in Siddhabari. And my father this weekend, starting tonight until Monday, he is speaking on the essence of the Bhagavad Gita in Hindi. So for all of you who want to know the entire vision in a language you're more comfortable with, those details are on our website and you can join my father for that. Even though I'm his senior teacher, still he's a good teacher. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.